It had been one of those days that just wouldn't end. I'd gone in early to cover for a coworker who called out sick, then ended up staying late to help clean up after some charity event. I didn't even really volunteer. I just felt bad leaving the others to do it all. By the time I finally stepped outside, it was about 10 p.m., the kind of hour where the streets are dark, but not totally dead yet. Just that weird quiet where you notice every little sound. I'd stayed behind with a couple of the other women from work, and honestly, I was kind of wishing I hadn't. My feet were killing me. I'd worn boots that looked cute this morning but felt like a mistake by the end of the day. I remember thinking I should have just called a rideshare, but I was trying to save money. The bus would be fine. It wasn't even that late. Still, standing there alone at the stop, I felt that familiar sense of being on alert. You know, when you're a woman out at night, you just automatically start scanning, checking shadows, listening for footsteps, pretending you're relaxed even though you're not. I checked my phone. Bus said about 10 minutes out. I sighed and shifted my bag on my shoulder. That's when I saw him. Across the street, leaning against a dark storefront, was a man. I hadn't noticed him at first. He wasn't moving, just standing there like he'd been part of the scenery the whole time. He wasn't smoking, not on his phone, just watching. Don't be paranoid, I told myself. But when I glanced back a minute later, he was still there, still watching. I tried to act casual, checking my phone again, like I wasn't aware of him at all. My heart was starting to pick up. Then, slowly, he crossed the street. At first I told myself maybe he was just heading somewhere, but no. He walked right up to where I stood and stopped a little too close. "Late night for you?" he said. His voice was low, kind of scratchy, like he hadn't used it in a while. I forced a polite smile. "Yeah, long day." He nodded like he understood. "Work?" "Yeah." "What do you do?" "Office stuff." "Where at?" "Downtown." He smiled, that weird, thin-lipped smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You waiting on someone?" "Nope, just the bus." "That's risky this time of night," he said, glancing down the street, especially for a girl alone. I forced a small laugh. "I'll be fine." He took a step closer. "Where do you live?" "Around here." Every instinct I had went on high alert. "Just a few blocks," I lied. "But I'm good, thanks." I started fumbling in my bag, thinking about my pepper spray, and then it hit me. I'd switched purses that morning because my usual one didn't match my outfit. The spray was sitting at home. Panic crept in. I tried to sound casual. "Actually, I should make a call." "Don't let me stop you," he said, but he didn't move. He just kept standing there, like he was waiting for something. That's when I heard the voice. "Is this guy bothering you?" I turned to see another man, mid-30s, clean-cut, holding a coffee like he'd just stepped out of a cafe. Relief rushed through me. "Yeah," I said, before I could stop myself. The first man shrugged like whatever and crossed back to the other side of the street. "You okay?" the second man asked. "Yeah, thanks." "You sure?" "I can wait with you. It's not safe out here for someone like you." "I think I'm good," I said, though my heart was still racing. He stayed close. "Seriously, it's no trouble. That guy was sketchy. I don't feel right just leaving you here. Really, it's fine. You're waiting for the bus, right? I can walk you to your stop or even walk you home. Where do you live?" I hesitated. "I'm close. I'll be okay." "You're sure?" "Look, it's late. You really shouldn't be out here alone. Let me help." Something about his tone had shifted. It wasn't a friendly offer anymore. It felt like pressure. "I actually forgot something at work," I blurted. "I should go grab it." His smile flickered, like he was frustrated, but he covered it fast. "All right, stay safe." I didn't wait. I turned and walked fast toward a convenience store I'd spotted earlier. I didn't look back, but I could feel both of them watching. When I pushed open the door, the clerk looked up from behind the counter. His eyes flicked past me, out the window. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound normal. He came around the counter a little, glancing out the window again. "I saw those guys. They were watching you the whole way. Gave me a bad feeling the second I spotted them." I swallowed hard. "Yeah, they were weird." He nodded slowly. "I've heard they usually don't let people get that far." I froze. "What do you mean?" He just shook his head like he didn't want to say more. "Stay in here a while. You're safe here." So I did. I stayed in that store until my bus finally showed up, and when I left, I didn't look around. I just got on, sat down, and didn't breathe easy until I saw that store fade into the distance. I don't take the bus at night anymore. It had been one of those nights where everything felt harder than it should have. I'd stayed late helping a friend pack up her apartment, and by the time I made it to the bus stop, it was pushing 10:30. My feet were sore, my back ached, and I was kicking myself for not just calling a rideshare. But I kept thinking about my budget, how I'd already overspent this month. So I told myself the bus would be fine. When it pulled up, I climbed on, giving the driver a polite nod like I always did. He didn't nod back, didn't even really look at me, just muttered something under his breath, shaking his head as I walked past. That threw me a little. I figured maybe he was having a bad night, or maybe I'd imagined it. I took a seat a few rows back, trying to shake it off. But then I noticed it. The way his hands gripped the wheel, tight, knuckles pale under the dim lights. The way his eyes kept flicking up to the rearview mirror. I glanced back, trying to see what he was watching. That's when I saw the figure at the back of the bus. Hood up, head down, sitting so still I almost missed them. They weren't moving. They weren't doing anything at all. I turned back around, trying to mind my business. But I felt the tension in the air, like a storm waiting to hit. The driver muttered again, louder this time. I couldn't catch the words, but I could hear the frustration in his tone. I tried to focus on my phone, scroll through something mindless, but it wasn't working. Then his voice cut through the quiet. "You got a problem?" I looked up, startled. "What?" "You keep looking at me in the mirror. Got something to say?" "No, I wasn't looking at you." "Sure looked like it to me." I blinked, confused. "Sorry, I wasn't trying to." He snorted. "Yeah, that's what they all say." The bus rattled over a pothole. The driver grumbled something under his breath. Then, out of nowhere, "You don't like how I'm driving? You can get off. Next stop. Don't need passengers like you on my bus." I opened my mouth, then closed it again. What was I supposed to say? I hadn't done anything. I glanced back at the hooded figure. Still no movement. But somehow, they felt closer. "I wasn't trying to be disrespectful," I said, voice low, trying not to make it worse. "Don't play games," he snapped. "You got an attitude? Take it somewhere else. You can get off at the next stop." I sank a little lower in my seat, heat creeping up my neck. I hadn't even looked at him except when I got on. "Fine," I muttered, embarrassed and frustrated. "Good," he shot back. "You'll be doing us both a favor." The bus felt smaller somehow, the air heavier. When we finally pulled up to the next stop, I grabbed my bag, standing slowly. The driver didn't look at me at first. His face was set, hard. But as I stepped down onto the curb, he glanced my way. And his eyes. His eyes weren't angry. They weren't mean. They looked almost sorry, like he was trying to tell me something without words. The doors shut with a hiss, and the bus rumbled off into the dark. I stood there, watching the taillights fade, heart racing for reasons I didn't fully understand. The street was quiet. Too quiet. I started walking, trying to shake the feeling that I'd just dodged something I didn't even see coming. I ended up calling a friend to come pick me up. I didn't want to stand out there any longer waiting for another bus. By the time I got home, it was after midnight. I was so drained I didn't even make it to my bedroom. I just kicked off my shoes and collapsed onto the couch. The next morning, I woke up groggy, still in the clothes I'd worn the night before. I turned on the TV while I got ready, the usual background noise as I grabbed a towel and headed toward the shower. That's when I heard it. Something about a bus driver and the police. I froze, then stepped back into the living room, turning up the volume. And that's when I saw it. A city bus driver had been found unconscious at the depot, badly beaten, in a coma. The police were searching for a suspect. They showed a blurry still from the bus camera, a hooded figure sitting at the back of the bus, the same one I'd seen. The report said they believed the attacker had been riding quietly, waiting for the right moment. And then it hit me. The driver hadn't been picking on me. He hadn't been angry at me. He'd been trying to get me off that bus, to protect me. I wanted to try and visit him, just to check on him, maybe say thank you. But because of privacy concerns, the hospital wouldn't say where he was being treated. The suspect was still out there, they said. I wanted to thank him, but based on the extent of his injuries, I'm not sure if I'll ever get the chance. It's strange how sometimes the people who make the biggest difference in your life are the ones you barely get to know at all. Sometimes you have a guardian angel and you don't even realize it until it's too late to say thank you. I don't usually take the late train. I work in the city, but I live far enough out that if I miss the 9:15, I've got a choice. Wait another hour or cough up an Uber fare that's almost half a day's pay. That night, I stayed late to cover for my manager. Overtime's nice and all, but the moment I stepped out into the night air, I felt that creeping regret. It had rained earlier. The concrete still smelled wet. The glow from the station lights reflected in strange smudges along the floor, like puddles that weren't really there, but your brain kept interpreting them that way. The stairs down to the platform were unusually quiet, no one talking, no one even lingering near the turnstiles. There's usually at least a couple of people waiting, scrolling on their phones or pacing back and forth. But not this time. I checked the digital board. Next train coming in 7 minutes. I figured I'd stand under the overhang near one of the signs until it got closer. But as I walked out toward the middle of the platform, I noticed I was alone. There were no security guards, no other passengers, not even a flicker of movement in the corners. Just me, and the flickering overheads making the tile look jaundiced. And then I saw him. He was standing maybe 30 feet away, just too still. He wore a dark green jacket, the kind with big pockets and snap buttons. The collar was turned up like he was cold, but it was summertime. He wasn't carrying anything, no bag, no phone, not even keys. His pants looked loose like scrubs or old workwear, and he had on these heavy black boots, one toe turned slightly inward. His face was pale, not just a lighter complexion, but almost colorless. And I couldn't see his eyes clearly, but I could tell they weren't tracking anything. Not the board, not the tracks, not even me. What made it worse was that he was facing the wrong way. Everyone who commutes knows which direction the trains come from. They come in from the left, But this guy, he was turned completely to the right, like he was waiting for something to crawl out of the tunnel coming from the opposite direction of where the train would arrive. He didn't turn to glance at me when I walked further down the platform. Not toward him, just away from the open stairwell and a little closer to the emergency intercom. Somewhere with better lighting. Somewhere I could see all angles. There was another stairway at the far end of the platform, so if he turned around and tried something, I figured I could make a run for it. But I was probably just being paranoid. The train pulled into the station a few minutes later from the left. I boarded one of the center cars. It was completely empty. I walked in through the center door of the car and sat down. I glanced down the length of the car. He was already there, standing at the far end, near the door that led to the next car behind us. Still as stone. Still turned away. That tightening in your gut. That subconscious warning before your brain catches up. I felt that the moment I sat down. He wasn't facing me. In fact, it felt intentional, like he was looking at or for something in the next car. But he never turned. We passed 2 stops. No one got on. No one got off. I told myself, he probably just looks weird. That's all. But I couldn't shake the weirdness of him standing at the back of the car, when based on where he'd been on the platform, he should have ended up toward the front. There'd been no sound of the connecting doors, no footsteps, just silence. But he was still there. At the 3rd stop, I got up and walked toward the front of the car and went to the next car ahead. This one had a woman in it, older, reading a paperback, earbuds in. She didn't look up. I sat down. I looked toward the back. Empty. Then we pulled into the next station, and when the doors closed, he was already there, standing directly in front of the connecting door to the car I had just come from. Same posture, same eerie stillness. The train entered a tunnel a few minutes later. The walls started to close in outside the windows. Lights dimmed, flickered, then went completely out for maybe 2 seconds, long enough to feel it. When they came back on, he was in the same spot at the back of the car, but somehow it felt like he was closer, still facing the rear of the train, like he was waiting for something that would never come. There'd been no sound of the door opening or closing, no hint that he'd come through from the next car, just darkness. And then he was there, still facing away, still not acknowledging me. I got up, slowly. I didn't want to draw attention, but I needed out of that car. I wasn't about to walk past him. So instead, I moved back toward the front and waited for the next stop. When the train slowed and the doors opened, I stepped out and immediately into the next car forward. This one wasn't much better. Just a teen asleep with their hoodie pulled tight and a man in delivery gear scrolling through his phone. I sat down. The train lurched forward again. Tunnel up ahead. I could see it. The walls started to close in outside the windows as we entered. Lights flickered. Then they went out completely. Again. Just for a second. When they came back on, he was in the same place, but now in this car. I reached for the emergency intercom. Pressed it. Nothing. Tried the help button. Dead. I glanced around. The delivery guy had earbuds in. Didn't notice a thing. The teen was still asleep. I was the only one seeing this. The only one who felt the pressure in the air shift every time this man appeared. The train kept moving. I was done trying to outpace him. So I stared at him. I watched for any twitch, any blink, any sign that he was human. He didn't flinch, didn't breathe. The light stayed on this time, but I was sweating. And I knew somewhere deep in my brain that if I got off this train alone, he'd get off with me. 2 more stops. Still there. Now closer. Just inside the back door, watching the empty space in front of him. Always in the same spot. Always waiting. That's when the PA crackled. Finally, and the automated voice said, "Final stop. All passengers must exit the train." I was on my feet before the doors even opened. I stepped onto the platform and didn't look back. Didn't wait for anyone else, just walked fast, out of the station, past the turnstiles, through the empty lobby and up the steps. I pulled out my phone. No signal again. Figures. I stood near the entrance, under the streetlights, waiting for someone, anyone, to walk by. And then I glanced back, down the long hallway of the station. The train was still there, just idling, and through the windows of the car I'd exited, there he was, standing at the back door, not moving, still facing away. I switched stations after that night, started leaving work earlier, took Ubers if I had to. I never saw him again. Not really. But sometimes on late nights, I think about him, how he never looked at me, how he never had to, like he already knew where I was going, and he just needed to stay a few steps ahead. Once, months later, I was riding with a friend. Different train, different line, and I caught a reflection in the dark glass across from us. Not mine, not theirs, but the silhouette of someone standing, in the wrong place, facing the wrong way. And I swear to you, he was wearing that same green jacket.